33 developers. That's right. We got 33. Their very first game, 9 Game of the Year awards. I played it. I beat it. In fact, I know I failed multiple times throughout the game when it came to some of the bosses, but it still kept me coming back. This is my complete, honest review in 2026 of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and we are going to have some fun with this one. Let's go. Welcome back. I am F5 Dad, 45 years of gaming, up at 4 a.m., so you never waste your money on games that simply don't deliver. So what it exactly is Clair Obscur Expedition 33? It is developed by Sandfall Interactive, 33 passionate French developers making their debut title, released April of 2025. It is set in a dark fantasy world inspired by Belle Epoque France, which is basically the golden era of French art and culture at the turn of the 20th century. So think gorgeous architecture, romantic aesthetics, and then absolutely destroy it all with a terrifying supernatural painting entity. To me, the premise was pretty extraordinary, and I'm going to read it to you because it does deserve to be heard properly. Every year, the paintress awakens. She paints a number on a monolith. Every person of that age vanishes instantly. Year by year, the number ticks downward. More people basically get erased. Tomorrow, she paints 33, and tomorrow, the last survivors of that age will depart on their final mission. Destroy the paintress before she can paint death again. We are Expedition 33. I read that setup, and I can tell you, I immediately wanted to play it. 5 minutes in, I was completely hooked. And let's get into why this game grabbed a hold of me as tight as it did and didn't let go till the end. So when you think about the story, it did grab me from the very first minute, and it didn't release me until the credits rolled. And I do want to be precise about what I mean because it is the most important thing I will say in this entire review. If you think about a lot of games, many of them will establish the stake in the opening hour and then kind of coast on those stakes for the next 20 hours. Expedition 33 does not do that, or at least in my opinion. The story earns emotional investment at regular intervals all throughout the entire campaign. Every revelation that comes about in this game is going to recontextualize something you thought you already understood. The world building of Expedition 33 is absorbed through experience rather than explained to you, which is the correct approach and the one that most RPGs abandon in favor of excessive tutorial text. As an example, the Belle Epoque French aesthetic creates an environment that is immediately distinctive and beautiful before the supernatural horror of the paintress's influence overlays everything with just pure dread. And that premise is going to stay resonant all throughout. This is not a story about saving the world in the abstract sense. It is a story about mortality, about what people sacrifice for those they love, and about whether fighting is about courage or madness. Those times are present from the opening and they deepen rather than fade as the game progresses throughout. I will say one thing about the ending and nothing more. It is done this way on purpose. The developers confirm there is no direct ending and called it an ending that is more open, where the player is going to determine what is true. Personally, I did find this completely right for what the story is trying to say, but as always, you're going to have the entire opposite side of the fence where people are just going to be completely unsatisfied and hate the way it ends. Both reactions to me are valid. What it absolutely is not is a lazy ending. It is a deliberate artistic choice that I honestly respected enormously. This is, to me, one of the finest stories gaming has produced in a very long time, and I mean that completely. So before we talk combat, I want to introduce you to the party because these characters are generally one of the great achievements of Expedition 33, and understanding who they are makes everything else make more sense. So up first, let's go ahead and talk about Gustav. He is going to be your man, a resourceful engineer, sword and pistol, the first character you're going to control. He is the balanced frontline fighter and your anchor into this world. Think competent veteran who's trying to hold everything together while everything else is falling apart. Deeply likable right from the very first scene. Maëlle is Gustav's foster sister, 16 years old, a rapier fighter, faster and more aggressive than anyone else in your party. She is widely considered one of the best party members, and once I understood how to use her Virtuoso stance, which is going to triple her damage when she can maintain it, she will become the absolute centerpiece of everything that you have, and you're going to build right around it. And as with everybody else, she did end up becoming my favorite character to use as I played the game. Up next, we do have Lune, which is the Scholar, the Mage, elemental spells, enemy weakness, exploitation, status effects, magic staying combos that chain into devastating follow-up attacks. If you like setting up combos rather than pure aggression, Lune's going to be your character, elegant, strategic, and rewarding to master. Yell is a former farmer turned teacher, which is a combination I deeply respect. Her combat system is built around inflicting card based attacks on enemies to amplify her damage and effects, which does sound complicated, and it is initially, but became deeply satisfying once the stacking begins to click. She is going to reward patience and planning as you play with this character. Verso is the second protagonist, mysterious, technically demanding, central to the story in ways I absolutely will not discuss here. What I will say is that when you understand who Verso is and what he represents, the whole game is going to shift in a way that lands harder than almost anything I have experienced in a role playing game. That is all you're going to get from me when it comes to this character. And finally, we do have Monaco, a non human gestural who joins late and is completely unlike any other character in the game. He will learn enemy abilities by transforming into the creatures you face and using their own powers against them. Final Fantasy Blue Mage energy taken to its absolute logical conclusion. Weird, wonderful, and surprisingly powerful once you figure it all out. 6 characters, 6 completely distinct identities. I found myself generally struggling to choose my party of 3 because I actually enjoyed all of them. And honestly, that is a rarer achievement than what it actually sounds. Now let's go ahead and talk about one of my favorite parts of the game, and it is all around the combat. Here we go. Expedition 33 is a turn-based role-playing game with real-time mechanics layered on top. Your turns are not passive. Specific button presses during your attacks increase damage, and then there's the parry system, the crown jewel, and occasionally the crown of thorns of the entire combat experience. A successful parry does not just block damage, it generates action points, it applies pressure on the enemy, and it frequently sets up massive counterattacks that can shift the momentum of an entire fight in one moment. When you nail perfect parry into a devastating counter, the feeling is one of the most satisfying things you're going to experience in role-playing game combat. I did find it pretty spectacular, and I felt like an absolute legend every time I nailed it. On the flip side, I also failed parries constantly in the early hours. Every character also has a complete distinct combat identity which deserves specific mention. Loon uses magic stains for immediate combo heavy setups that scale beautifully. Gustav's marking shots opens enemies for follow-up pressure. Mael's Virtuoso stance when she maintains it is the highest damage output in the game, and watching her tear through an enemy when everything is clicking is pretty spectacular. The game also does something thoughtful. It will generally bridge different playstyles. If your reflexes are sharp, you can master parrying and dominate every single encounter. If you prefer traditional turn-based thinking, you can optimize your Picto loadouts and build your stats to power through encounters without relying on perfect reaction timing. That flexibility is real, and it was greatly appreciated as I played throughout the game. Now, here's another honest part, and I want you to hear this clearly before you begin playing the game. Enemies will use slow-motion windups to bait your defense and then suddenly flash with the actual window already closing, meaning if you responded to the animation, you were basically already too late. You will feel like you've been cheated, but in reality, you're not being cheated. The game is telling you that you need to learn the specific pattern of each specific enemy. That process of learning through failure is real, and it is going to take you time as you play the game. Because the system is built so heavy around countering to negate damage, later encounters can start to feel like an endless reflex test that occasionally overshadows the traditional turn-based strategy underneath. Players who came specifically for deep tactical thinking found the parry layer a little bit more dominant than expected. Later game bosses and chromatic enemies add further frustration. They can heal mid-fight, shield at critical moments, temporarily remove your party members from combat. I had a 10-minute boss fight end in a brutal defeat with limited feedback on what I should have done differently. I did sit back and stare at the ceiling for a moment, and this did happen more than once, but honestly, it's minor in the grand scheme when you do break it all down and think about Expedition 33. Now, when you talk about loadout management, let's talk about the Picto system. It can also feel exhausting when you're trying to solve specific encounter requirements. Navigating what the fight needs versus what you've built toward is occasionally more friction than fun. And being honest, these are real criticisms of a system that is simultaneously one of the most innovative in modern role-playing game design. So I do want to be completely transparent. The frustrations are genuine, and the players who found the combat ceiling too demanding have complete legitimate reasons to feel that way. On the other side, I also think the combat was worth every second of that frustration. So for players willing to engage with what it is asking, both things are going to be true. So during this last section, you may have heard me mention the Picto system, and let's go ahead and talk about that because it is the layer of Expedition 33 that most players either completely overlook or find pretty overwhelming, and I think it deserves an honest explanation before you move forward and play the game. Pictos are essentially passive ability enhancers that you equip to your characters to boost specific stats and unlock bonus effects. Find a Picto that enhances your attack after a successful parry, suddenly your parry reward is even higher. Find one that boosts elemental damage, suddenly Loon becomes even more devastating. The right Picto loadout can completely transform how a character performs in combat. Here's the thing nobody's going to tell you up front. Pictos drop from enemies hidden in the world and from chests throughout the entire game, which means the build system I described earlier and the Picto system are feeding each other constantly. You are always going to be searching for better abilities and better Pictos simultaneously, and the combination of both creates a character customization depth that kept me experimenting right through all the way to the final act. The honest caveat, and I mentioned this in the combat section, is that navigating Picto loadouts when you're trying to solve a specific difficult encounter can feel a little bit exhausting rather than empowering. I did find the graphics and the art direction pretty spectacular, and I do choose those words very carefully, especially after many years of gaming. Right from the get go, you will experience a painted dreamscape and be influenced by the painteress and the visual distortion that's going to be caused across the world. Enemy designs are memorable and distinctive. Environmental variety is pretty impressive for a team of 33. The moments where the art direction and narrative converge, especially around the paintress herself, are some of the most visually things I've experienced in many years. This is debut title work that looks like it was made by people who care deeply about every single visual decision. That care is visible in almost every frame as you go throughout the game. After beating Clair Obscur Expedition 33, here is my honest verdict. The story grabbed me right from the first minute and never released me. After 45 years of gaming, I do not say that lightly. Gustav, Mael, Loon, Ciel, Verso, Monaco, 6 characters that I generally cared about in ways that drove my build decisions as much as my strategic considerations. The themes of mortality and sacrifice and fighting are handled with maturity and emotional intelligence throughout the entire game. The combat to me was pretty innovative and one of the most engaging systems in modern role-playing game design. The parry system at its best is among the most satisfying moments I've had in any game. The Picto build system also kept me searching and optimizing right through to the end credits. At the same time, the frustrations are going to be real. The timing windows, the late game boss designs, the chromatic enemy behavior. Players who did find those frustrating, they do have legitimate reasons. I also think the combat's worth engaging with completely. The ceiling is high and reaching it is pretty rewarding. Also, the graphics to me were very stunning. The art direction's extraordinary for any studio, let alone a debut. The technical rough edges do exist and are honest limitations in an otherwise exceptional package. Look, it is the most decorated game of 2025, made by 33 people making their very first game. When I break it all down, guys, my score for this game is going to be a 9 out of 10. It is the best role-playing game that I have played since Witcher 3. Absolutely no excuses. Pick the game up and have a blast as you beat this game all the way to the end. We are at the end of the video. That is my complete, honest review of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Zero sponsorships, zero hype, 45 years basically behind every single opinion I do provide. Drop a comment. Tell me which character you ran in your party. For me, I had Mael from start to finish. And which character did you go with? Do you agree with my decision, or maybe you have somebody else? Also, if you beat the game, let me know what you thought about the game, because to me, it was fantastic from start to finish. Also, do me a favor, guys. Hit subscribe so you never miss out what's coming next on this channel by ringing the bell. Every Saturday, I do provide either a new review or maybe a deep dive or just maybe something else that's on my mind when it comes to gaming. Also, every Tuesday is my 30 Steam deals under $15. As always, guys, hit F5, reset, reload. I am F5 Dad, and I'll see you on the next video.